Well, welcome everyone. We're here with my good friend Jurmy. And again, we're going to have a good time talking about safer gambling and other stuff. Jeremy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you end up working in safer gambling?
Pedro, thank you for having me as a guest on your podcast. It will be my first podcast actually, which is exciting, especially to be a guest on your podcast. So I'm very honored. Um, how did I end up in safer gambling? Which is quite interesting actually, because it was a coincidence. I never thought in my life that I would work for an online operator. But it turned out that way. And um, it was when I moved from the Netherlands to Malta, I was actually ready to do something I would have, you know, passion about, not just earning money, or I wanted to be meaningful.
Mhm.
And that everything was open. So I didn't actually know. The only thing I knew is I wanted to get away from the cold country. And because I dreamt about living, you know, next to a, in the Mediterranean, or on a nice island, zipping a pina colada. I just had distanced myself from my business, so I was recovering. I could say I was recovering because I spent so much time working 7 days a week, not saying no to clients and etc. etc. And it almost for 3 years. So it made me feel that I wasn't having the quality of life that I wanted. So I saw, and and actually, and this is quite funny. I think we all have dreams, right? And
Yeah.
you have your business, and you want to earn money, obviously. But you also see yourself. Why do you want to earn money? If you keep asking the question why, at a certain point, you have like the limited vision of laying somewhere on the beach, having your pockets full with loads of money and never have to work again, something like that. So I would just do the first step. I would just lay on the beach step. And that's what I actually did. And then I just let everything, um, I was open to a lot of things.
Okay.
Luckily, I was applying and I was invited to apply at a very large operator, very well known operator. And I didn't even had a clue what kind of operator it was at that point. But I felt like I have to, let's see, let's just get into the adventure and let's just see how much fun it will be. And it was mind blowing. What a terrific employer! I was like, this is amazing. And
I remember. I think you were working for Kindred, no?
yeah,
Back then, because
it was Unibet when I
oh,
started.
Univer, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It was Unibet, and they were still in the old office in Zira. Was quite small office, but they quickly moved towards Slima, and they became Kindred as well, and it just blew up, in my opinion. It was amazing to work for such a company, um, and I realized that I was at a good spot. And what was fun was is that they noticed that I was interacting with customers in a way that they saw as a how do I say this? They were quite fast. They were impressed how I spoke with the customers and how I engaged with them, and they thought this guy needs to do something with RG, because quickly I had some customers who had problems, and I became an expert in this from ever since, and that's now 8 years ago.
That's a long time, 8 years, in gambling.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, if you have fun, time passes fast. You don't.
Yeah.
Um,
What were you doing before? Because you said that you had a business and you were working
I
and working.
I was a private chauffeur, and
Okay.
I had my own car, and I had people driving for me, but it was in the private area, so not in the public area. And I actually had a very nice car, executive car, and I just it was actually out of necessity because I started that not because I just really wanted to some I wanted to have a career in this. It was because of necessity because in the business I was before that,
Hmm.
and this was very, how do I say this? I was in real estate before that,
Hmm.
but in the social real estate. And back in the days, you had 2008, the big crisis, the big financial crash, and the real estate business was actually still blooming until 2011. And I worked for, in the UK terms, you would say council housing, but in the Netherlands, it's a totally different type of housing. Um, council housing seems a bit on the lower end, but social housing, that's what we call it in the Netherlands, that's not on the lower end. You have all kinds of levels, and it's huge. It's not. It's more common than if you. I mean, there are more houses that are for that are property, private property, but it's huge, especially in the large cities. So there's a lot of um, real estate that belongs to. And back in the days, it was the government, but a long time ago. Then the government moved away from that, and it became privatized. And they always say semi-privatized because this is the key. So what actually happened in 2011 is that the government decided that since all these social corporations are incredibly wealthy, they would have to, and they have earned their money um, in the beginning from the government because bricks and stones are actually built by the government, and
Okay.
then they took it over from the government. Yeah. So they said because still our money is still in there, you need to pay tax and a lot of tax. So they were suddenly taxed. The company I used to work for had to pay 80 million per year tax out of thin air. So and I lost my job because I was almost 3 years there, and it was really hard to get back in that because I love that working for the social real
Yeah,
estate
it's
companies. It's amazing because you had to deal with people, with problems, solving problems. I was in the complaints. I can write a book. I can write a
but
book. What happened? What happens behind closed doors with people? It's incredible.
it feels a bit like it's life prepares you to do difficult jobs. Sometimes like because I remember I ended up in gambling a little bit like you. I lost my job. I was working
Oh,
for IBM.
oh
So,
wow.
so basically I was in charge of the help desk for Amex, and the help desk was IBM. So basically, they decided that they wanted to move the team from Brighton to Poland, to save some money. And they asked me, "How do you want to go?" I said, I'm staying in Brighton. I just applied for random jobs, and I end up working for a gambling company. So it's a little bit that, you know, most of the people that I know, or many people, it's been like you end up randomly. And at IBM, I always have to deal with complaints. People that, from Amex, that they were experts on receiving complaints,
Yeah,
from the card holders, and they were always really difficult.
yeah. Yeah, what I did was a lot of things had to do with the livelihood in areas. So I had thousands of houses that were my responsibility to make sure that it was clean, that it was pleasant to live there. So you have to collaborate with all kinds of institutes and non-profit organizations and local governments You have these regional meetings. It was a very nice job. Yeah, it was fun. It's super interesting. Nice projects, empowering people. Um, some people had some projects and I could provide funding for them to do social projects in neighborhoods. No, it was lovely. Um, so I think the interaction with people, that's something that they spotted right away, and they would like. I think Jurmy would be very very good. So I think it was within 2 weeks, they said we think this is something that you're good in. So ever since I've been speaking with customers, and it grew from there.
Okay. And I think I met you for the first time. I think it was 2018. I remember that I was delivering training at Kindred.
You know what?
Yeah,
You mentioned this before, but
yeah, yeah.
I'm, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really remember. I have to say I had a lot of training from Kindred. They were really good at that. I think I received at least 3 or 4 trainings per year from different people, different ranges, different levels. And so I think I would remember you. Yeah, but
I do remember you because I remember that you say, at the beginning that your name was Jeremy, but on the phone you were Mike or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
how do you know? Yeah,
Because I do remember stuff, and then later on, I
amazing.
remember at the beginning you told me, oh, I'm Mike, and then you you told me, oh, Jeremy is my real name. For example, I remember that
You're right.
at Marathon Bed, like my staff, there were a lot of them that they were Eastern European, and I said, look, if you're Dimitri, you don't need to call yourself James, you're Dimitri and that's it, you don't need to try to anglicize, or anything.
Mike is also my real name. So
Oh,
it's
I didn't know that. I thought
yeah.
that it was like the company sort of name.
No, it's true because I worked obviously in the Dutch market, and man, the Dutch are incredible cheeky, and I mean in every sense of the word. I think from all kindred, and I can openly say that the Dutch should be ashamed of themselves how they try to steal. And I'm Dutch. I'm saying this because I'm Dutch.
You can
Steal,
say,
deal, yeah, steal, deal. They try to do everything that you're not allowed to do, and then try to
okay,
get away with it more than other markets. It's just a fact. And we had some serious things going on sometimes with players, and we didn't want to, for safety purposes. Some people were Googled, and they were personally attacked by customers. Can you imagine? They were just doing their job. So no,
well, I remember, when I work in a company, one time, because at the end, sometimes I had to decide complaints and all that. And I had a postman that was coming and say, "Oh, I bring a parcel for Pedro Romero." I say, "Oh, he's in a meeting," but the person on the desk is like, "Oh, sign for him." No, no, I need to speak with him. And they got a bit like was a bit weird, no? So I was in a meeting, and like 2 hours later I came and said, "Oh, there was a postman, that basically wanted to punch you or something like that, because
oh,
they said, look, this busy, just sign here." And then the guy started losing, and basically was a person that was in a difficult situation, complained about something. Unfortunately, we followed the regulation back then, and the person had a personal beef with me, so it's and I remember that after that incident, the company decided to take all the logos from the building, and I remember staff of mine, they got threats on the phone and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes can be a little bit dangerous. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've heard some customers, not directly to me, but to other employees, some horrific things that I just can't repeat. How would you?
Yeah, no, really, really abusive, you know. And I always, because I used to be head of operation, I always say, look, you know, we follow a three-strike rule. If the person is rude or whatever, you know, every employee, you know, you have the right to your dignity, and just say, look, we're not taking this, and we're going to ban you from, you know, coming to the chat or coming. I mean, they'll call from a different phone, no? But
Yeah,
back then, when there was telebetting, there was a lot of abuse. Yeah.
it's so interesting because I always want to help, to serve, especially those who are difficult. So if they are very difficult, my responsible gaming brain goes into a certain way that I try to loosen up and then open up and then listen what the customer is actually saying. And at a certain point, I felt like I had this so much under control that I knew when I couldn't um, engage with the customer in a way that they would open up, because they have a problem with something. If you take that
Yeah.
away, the problem is gone. Um, and I tried that a lot. And I remember, which is quite funny because she actually works in my team at the moment, um, a fantastic colleague. And I said, listen, can you speak to this customer? Because I don't think I can get through to this customer. So I told him, I said, I'm going to move away and let you speak to a different. And it was a totally different person. It's like water and fire. So it's very interesting if you can play that dynamic. I think it's a sort of psychology as well. I don't know exactly how to grasp it. There's sometimes it's something that you feel, but she could do everything, what I couldn't.
No, and I think sometimes, uh, like customers. Okay, you're the bad customer service, and then the other person is good. You know, it's like the person sometimes may choose the bad cop and the
Yeah.
good cop. You know, they go, they speak with you. You know, they have a rant. You're not really helpful, and then once they get it a little bit out of the system,
Yes.
sometimes it's this sort of thing. Okay, they have the rant with you, and then can I
Yeah.
speak with your manager? Can I speak with the team leader or whatever? Even if it's another colleague, because sometimes, you're
That's
like,
an interesting discussion,
you're, yeah,
because if you have, for example, these very deep conversation when people are at the end and are completely desperate and there's like a threat going on, what I usually do is make sure that I just empty everything that's inside of them.
yeah.
And you could hear on the phone, you can hear them going into a more relaxed state. And that is where you can shape the conversation a bit and move a bit forward.
Yeah, sometimes when people are angry, or upset or something, it's just, okay, let it out, you know, just listen, and once you know, they get it out of the system, it's okay. Let's try to sort this out. Let's see what we can do. Hmm. So, and then you mentioned that how long were you for at Kindred?
Um, 2016 till 2021, I think. End of 21. No, the end of 21, beginning 22. What am I
It
saying?
was pandemic time.
Yes, yes, yes. And when I worked at Kindred, I got my two girls were born quite fast after each other. So time went really fast for me. It was just um, it went really fast, and we could work from home. That's actually when I think it's a bit hard to say, but some people had a terrible time during the pandemic. I feel that I didn't. The only thing that I didn't like was the restrictions, but the time with my children, that was amazing.
Mm.
And so, because time you can't never you can't get back, you know.
Yeah.
Time is something you can't get back, especially with your children. We're both working, so yeah. Currently, I work for a company that just is 100% remote. I mean, if you want to work hybrid, you can work hybrid. If you want to work remote, you can work remote. If you want to go to the office, you go to the office every day. It's up to you. It just depends where you live. And my children are at the age that I wouldn't mind changing that again. But at that time, nobody can take that away from me. It's very,
It's it's amazing, because when you can be around. I think I was working from home. Like when I was working at the Gordon movie. I think it was 2014 or something like that. They had the offices in Dudley. And I was working remotely from Brighton. And I remember, when my son was born a couple of years later, I think 2000 and 16, that it was amazing just being at home, helping, going for a stroll in the morning, like the sort of commuting, office, all of that. That's such a family life killer.
for sure. And Kindred's office was next level. I'm telling you, I never ever experienced something so fantastic as how it was organized there.
I mean,
I
I
don't know.
have so many friends, that they, the culture, everything. I remember I have been in the offices a few times. Like the ice cream machine, the food, the PlayStation, the training. And I always say, like, look, it pays off. Because if you treat good your staff, they're going to treat good your customers. So you get what you give. And if you've been treated, like with the whip, it's very difficult for your staff to have any love for the customers, particularly with customers that they're not going to call you because they're happy. Yeah.
I think it was a very nice time. It was a very nice time. I liked it a lot.
I think sometimes the in Malta, the sort of Scandinavian, the Nordic companies, they always have like really nice culture.
Yeah, but I think Kindred was number one for
Yeah.
sure. Just the way they did their things, and it changed after the pandemic because they had a nice office and there was nobody there, so everything changed after the pandemic. Um,
Yeah, have been they have been bought by the French lottery, no? How's it
yeah,
called?
yeah, I think so.
FDJ or something like this.
Something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's see, because sometimes it can be a bit of a big change, when you go through a merger or acquisitions. Do you Do you remember, I don't know, any really difficult cases that you have to deal with when you were at Kindred?
You know, I have a lot of difficult cases, and a couple of them I remember. But you know what? Yesterday, just came something in my mind, and it was not really a difficult case, but it was just the tone of the customer will always stick with me. Um, and he said something like this: "All you casinos having a blast on the beach, on your jet skis, and having a cocktail at the beach and laughing because you just took all the money of those customers. This is sometimes how customers would feel of these companies that are in Malta." And we're not the only thing that we were doing. We were on the beach, not all the time, and we were having parties, but we never laughed about customers. That was always in the heart of the work. It was very important to help those customers. But some, it's the way they say it, and
There's some bitterness, no?
it was a bitterness. Yeah, it was a bitterness. At the end of the day, you should never point at other people. Always point at yourself. But that's why I feel that in the work that I do, I like to prevent than you know resuscitate. So rather prevention than let it happen. Okay, and I think that's the most important thing.
In my experience, first of all, like, oh, many companies that I work for, not all of them, but many, they were a bit like, you know, interactions always too late, limits too high, everything is too late. And I said, look, it's a bit like, if you have somebody with a fever, you can treat them. If you have someone in critical condition, is difficult to resuscitate. So it's always,
Yeah,
prevention, rather than because the person that is in a really bad shape, even if you put limits, even if you close their account, the likelihood is that they may continue somewhere else, or in a
but
crypto casino or something like that.
yeah, but to be honest, Pedro, I'm not really. It sounds a bit weird, but I'm not really concerned about that they go somewhere else because I can't. I don't have control over that. So what I worry about is what I can control myself. Obviously, in an ideal situation, obviously we want to help those customers not go anywhere. So for me, it's about onboarding. Yeah.
What do you mean by onboarding?
By onboarding is because I don't like to speak about restricting a customer. I actually speak about onboarding a customer. So when something like that, when certain thresholds are met or reached, I would restrict the account, but I would also want to understand more about the level of affordability at the same time. If that doesn't happen, what are you actually doing? Because we want the customer to stay with us and play with us. They might have a lot of money. They might not have. Sometimes they don't even have a job and they're playing. It's really interesting what you discover if you just ask for it.
One of the things is, because working in safer gambling, it's a difficult job, and you need your time, and you need to, you know, create some rapport with the customer, help them to open up, create a bit of a safe environment. Sometimes companies is okay, you need to do 60 cases a day, ticket, bam, bam, bam. And it's okay. You have people that, in an ideal situation, they could do a good job, but because, okay, you have a queue, the SLA, it becomes a bit like a factory work, sometimes doing interaction.
Yes, completely understand. There must be some performance management, obviously, but and that's so in our work, as you know, it's not only about getting those KPIs ticked, but it's also um, so if it was up to me and everything's in the ideal world, if everything is ideally set up, I call it monitor the monitoring system. So the system works for you and monitors, but also communicates, and then you're just reviewing what the monitoring system does. And I think then you can intervene and tailor to the needs at that point. But it's important that as you said, you need to do so many cases. On my department, we don't do that.
That's good.
Because you have, let's call them tickets that are slow and are fast. And I rather have quality over quantity. I think that's the most important thing, because we onboard. So for the company I work for, we onboard. That's the philosophy. Because you have a lot of wealthy customers as well. Why would you restrict a wealthy customer? But you first need to know if it's a wealthy customer. I got actually this week from my team, we got an 80 long page of assets from a customer, which adds up in the hundreds and thousands. Very hard to translate in a different language and to analyze. But those are willing to show us, and this is also, I think, a key factor in sustainability, because I think people can appreciate that you at least look out for them, make sure that they can play what they can miss and what they can afford.
What do you think about people that say, oh, if you ask too many questions, customers will go to the black market. If you ask them for a pay slip, if you ask them for, tax returns, if you ask them for.
It depends on what kind of customer. It's very simple. So if you want to be lavish, are you a lavish customer? You just want to go all out. Don't play with us. Because for us, it's about sustainability. There is no place for you on the platform. This is about sustainable fun. So if you ask too many questions, I think you need to ask the question at the right time. And you don't need to ask so many questions. We would ask one question if you reach a certain threshold, and that's how much do you earn? Show me. If you don't show me, the account will stay like this. But this is just because we want to know and ensure that you can keep this up for a very long time.
Okay, but problematic gambling sometimes is not only about money. So you may have people
For sure.
that you can afford, I don't know, all the vodka in the world, but you may be an alcoholic. Suppose that with gambling, you may have people that may be able to afford the gambling, but is having a negative impact in their lives. How do you assess this type of thing?
It's a very good question. The only thing that I can't do is know what's in front of me without knowing the person itself. Because we have, and I think every operator has this, we have these refund requests of people that maybe deposited 75 euros and their life is ruined and they can't pay their rent. But at our platform, they only paid 75 euros. And then you look at their play pattern and you can't actually see. You see maybe a couple of deposits, and so you can't predict, and you don't know what's happening on the other side. It's I try to, because what we try to do is we utilize a system that is good in detecting customers that are at risk. But if you use a system, there is also a blind corner. The blind corner is the system. Because the system can't detect, can't see if somebody had lost all their money and they just want to make that tiny deposit, which is actually a problematic deposit. And it can be a problematic deposit for 20 or 30 euros or lower. That deposit is in value low, could be in time, it could be at every level, but for that person, that deposit is a concerning deposit because he could have done the groceries with it. And that's hard to detect. There's no detection who can detect that. So what we try to do is do the two. And watch also not only look at the high risk customers, but look at the low risk customers as
You
well.
know, I think this is a really important thing. Because sometimes it's this over reliance on the flags.
Oh, for sure.
Like, oh, long session, but I had in the past, a really tragic case of a person that died by suicide, and the person only spent a couple of hundreds in the company, that I was working at the time. And I mean, we didn't know that the person spent tens of thousands with another company, but again, didn't trigger any flag. Just get the first deposit, safer gambling email that back then, because I think it was like in the 2018 or something like that. And really tragic case, because you say, look, it's the system is completely blind. So if doesn't reach some thresholds.
It's a blind spot. So we're talking about AI and about algorithm. You can have a very advanced algorithm who's very advanced in setting up formulas to detect customers that are showing gambling behavior. Um, but that's only when certain we can call them also KPIs are met. And when those KPIs are not met, it should be at a lower risk. But don't let that mislead you,
Yeah, I
because
mean, I don't know. I suppose that was like a global system, you can see, but at the end of the day, you cannot, have a, maybe you can have a better vision or understanding, but it's tough, because you got those cases, and it's like, it's hard wrenching.
yes, yes. I mean, uh, I can tell you about a case that will always stick with me. There was a young boy. He was 15 years old, and he stole the identity of his sister. Now, his sister and him shared their last name and the first letter of their first name.
Hmm.
So deposit wise, he, that at that time, at that moment, I think he also used
Idea or something.
her bank details, her bank, so online banking, and I think it was in the range of 4 or 5 thousand euros at that time.
That's a lot, for a
Yeah,
15-year-old.
it's a lot. It's a lot. Um, he tried to commit suicide. He ended up in the hospital. So he didn't. They didn't. It didn't. They didn't call us. Yeah. So somebody else from the family called us, explained what happened. Now you have to understand. So now it's up to us. So how are we going to verify this all? Because anybody can come up with some story. So we really need to verify the whole situation, even with the hospital, etc., which we did. So it goes very deep, and we discovered that it was actually an actual situation, and he stole the money from his sister, who tried to commit suicide, and he barely survived. And it was a social worker who I actually also spoke to. They were hired from the hospital to support, and we managed to resolve the case with the family. But um, that will always stick by you, because it's like, oof, you have all these securities in place, and some things.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's this sort of thing. It's like, okay, like 4K,
Yeah,
it's a lot of money, but I remember the back in the day, like in the 2000s, and something like they were very, 2000s and tens. There were very little checks.
Yeah, I think he took some pills, and they found him somewhere, and they managed to save him. So to pump up, also empty his stomach, and there was a lot going on in that family as well.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, the cases they're they're never straightforward. There's most of the time there's a lot of things going on. Because sometimes you can say, okay, how you know can this happen completely undetected? That there's no safeguard, that nobody noticed that something's going on. You know, I mean, I suppose some cases may be very quick. But
It can
yeah,
go very quick, yeah. Um, those cases help me shape the policy and procedures that I create as well, because and I really think regulators, um, I think those those regulations should be written by RG people.
it's I always say that most of the people that they work in safer gambling, responsible gambling, it's a really difficult job, because it's a uphill uphill battle. I remember this sort of thing once. Like this early 2020. Having arguments with the CEO of a company that I think they wanted to put the limits for under 25 or something. They wanted the company was reducing it. I think it was from 25K or something like that to 12. I was asking the CEO, okay, you have a young adult son. Can your son spend 12K in gambling? No. Okay. How do you think that the son of a plumber, or you know
Oh,
can spend that money? Oh, but it's yearly. Okay, but it's yearly, but they can spend it in 1 month. You know.
ethics, sustainable gambling. Um, it all comes down to people's personal values, and it should
Yeah.
be your personal values. If you are a CEO of a company, your personal values should be reflected in the company, especially regarding ethics.
For a long time, I was like, really, I hated, this, executive, I was thinking. But then, I thought that, okay, maybe if they're in the job, and they don't make the targets, the board just say, okay, we just get this other, managing director or CEO or whatever, that will have less ethics, to, sometimes can be a race to the bottom, because you get
No, no,
like
for
all
sure.
all the all the companies that say, okay, the quarterly figures, they're not double digit growth.
I completely can relate. I can relate for sure. Yeah, but
So
don't forget, never forget. The more you invest in a company, on long term, the more money is going to make. And short term money is not long money. So
I completely agree, but many of these people, they're not for the long term. They know that as CEO, they're going to last a year or 2 years, and they just want to get their, you know, bonus, or trade the shares that they got in the package at a higher value. And so it's I always thought that maybe you say, okay, if you're responsible at some level, you have to think twice, what you do, because it's okay, you're driving a Ferrari and someone else is paying the fine. Okay, you
of course, no, 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 completely understand. It's It's a struggle. It's a struggle. But I really think, and I think the company I work for is proof of that, especially because there's also been a license change, and we had customers had to hop from one license that got closed down to a new license at a new company, and we almost see the same active customers um, on the
I
new
mean,
license. And believe me, I think it's to do with product, but also with to do with safety. If they feel safe, you have a customer for life. Okay, a customer for life. There's no marketing campaign who can be better than that. And that's always the philosophy. And I can see it in the numbers. If they weren't making a profit, I probably would say they would say goodbye to me. But the profits are growing. So there is a strict interpretation of how it should be applied, and at the same time, there is profit. Profits are gained, and if you're not gaining enough profit, you should do a better marketing job.
yeah, but I think sometimes it's the easy scapegoat, like say for gambling, rather than going to the marketing person, or
It's
the
ignorance.
product or whatever, they go and, oh, maybe we're too restrictive, with our customers,
It's
they go
ignorance.
and
It's not. There's
and
no proof of that. There's no proof of
and
that.
I mean, I am aware of that, but it's an easy solution. They come to you and say, look, Jeremy, we are going to take we're taking a risk-based approach, and we're happy to take a higher level of risk.
I have a good one. I have a good one for that.
A
So
counter, no?
what I did was, instead of checking how many active customers we have, I'm checking how many customers close their account. You should see how many customers close their account. It's like 3/4 of them. You have a nice customer base, but you see there's like the triple the amount of accounts that are closed. Why are they closed? Why can't you? Why can't they stay open? Why did they close them? I would always turn it around, because it's about retention, onboarding, retention. And there's always a percentage that want to do lavish things and take crazy risks, and um, you don't want these customers, because it can blow up and it can bite you. It can also become a liability, even legally. So you don't want to be in the news for that.
No, definitely,
So it's a game, but it's these days, I think sustainable gambling, responsible gambling, it's all about data, and this is the new landscape. We're moving away. When we first started to gamble, throwing these sheep heels up in the air and see, to having the first casino in Italy. We're coming a long way from that, because back in the days, we're talking about the 1600s, people also lost their livelihood. They lost centuries of wealth from their families in casinos. And now we are in a situation that we can read data. This is where it gets really interesting. So the biggest challenge is if you can identify and tag every set of data and analyze it and process it, you can come a long way. You can come a long way. If you can always know why players close their accounts, or why certain behaviors are done, more than what we're doing now. And if you get it aligned, so you can see it in front of you, sorted. It's interesting. I mean, even going further, applying the smartwatch, applying everything that's smart related. I think the casinos and the game providers could do more on that to stimulate, to get more data available of the customer. I think it's a level experience.
Because everything is a double-edged sword. Like, okay, if you have wearables, they can, feel when, okay, somebody's, distressed, and you can help the person, but you can also get a bit like where is more vulnerable, or where, the person is going to make, decisions that may not be, thought through.
I think you can use the data to your advantage in the sense of protection and safety. Because the more you know, you you want to know more.
I always said, from the safer gambling perspective, like once you know, you cannot unknow. Once the person
Yes, yes,
stuff,
yeah.
okay, now you need to do something about it. What about the future? With all streamers, with esports, all these sort of new types of gambling. How do you think safer gambling is going to evolve? In terms of new products.
I see already new products. I see peer-to-peer betting arising. I see loot boxes, yeah, games, social games. Um, but I think I always think metaverse and the world in there is going to be the massive contribution to it all. But I think we're not there yet. But that will be an immersive experience, and that's because then there's all that data available to you, which for an RG person like me would be Valhalla, so to say,
Mm.
would be the ideal place to gather data, but also to gamify responsible gaming.
Okay, that's how do you think that safer gambling or responsible gambling can be gamified?
I think um, there will be interaction with the player and with the AI entity that you programmed, and they can choose what kind of entity that is. They can interact with them. Because I think that's the beginning. It's already starting now, and I think you have great AI at the moment. And if it gets even better, it's like speaking to a normal person, and they can. That's a lot of data because what we want is to understand what's in here.
Okay, you talk about artificial intelligence. And I remember even like long time ago, I wanted to the companies to develop like back then there were chatbots. So okay, maybe we can
Yeah,
create a
yeah,
safer gambling chatbot or something. Now we're talking
yeah,
about really advanced artificial intelligence that you can even do role play with chat gpt,
yeah.
and to train your stuff. And but I suppose that this sort of thing, I may get an interaction from artificial intelligence, and I may use another artificial intelligence to reassure your artificial intelligence that I'm fine, and let me keep playing.
No, I think it's about getting to know the person. So
Okay.
not about. So I think first of all, how I don't know if you have a favorite actress that you fancy that you're like, I could eat a nice breakfast with her. But you could pick your avatar, you know. So you could pick your avatar. You could pick even the voice in the avatar, and then you can have an interaction, and the AI can ask you how you are. Because I think that's the most important thing. If we can pick up what the levels of happiness is, Yeah, and also how if it is severe, if there's something going on, and we can use the data to make very good decisions.
Because it started being a bit like, this sort of thing is a bit like, even, from the point of view that I see, a bit dystopia. So imagine, I don't know, that you like Scarlett Johansson, and Scarlett Johansson is going to have a safer
It's
gambling
fantastic. Yeah,
interaction with you, but you
yeah.
know that this is fake. So what so it's is that ethical even? Do you
It
know
is.
what is
It
being
is.
measured?
No, it's a good question. You need to ask these questions constantly, especially when you create AI. So it all depends who has created the AI and what's ethical about that. So that specific AI I'm talking about. So your company has to represent diversity, which is very important. And once you implement that in your technology, then you have an ethical product because otherwise it would be a biased product. So you would and you can start from there. And from me, I don't mind if it takes AI to help people out of loneliness. Why not?
It's interesting because I I cannot be precise with it, but I think I heard a podcast where it was saying that young people have sort of AI companion, like sort of
Yeah,
relationship, sort of like virtual, part. And I just feel a bit like, maybe I'm just showing my age with this sort of thing. It's like,
you
oh,
know,
I'm not sure, if somebody that, or the purpose of the artificial intelligence, is to keep you engaged with the artificial intelligence. It's a bit like Facebook or something. Okay, the focus is that you spend as much time as possible in the platform, so we can monetize you with ads. So, if you have an artificial intelligence that is engaging with you for loneliness or whatever, at the end of the day, you're not engaging with the real thing. I don't know. It's not that it may have a therapeutical purpose. That is okay. I'm going to help you a little bit, so then you can interact with real human beings. It creates a loop of, I'm just agreeable with
yeah,
you or
no,
whatever,
no,
or I'm really nice with you all the time.
yeah,
So
no, I
all
understand.
they're really difficult. So
I understand. It's a very good point. The only thing is because I just wanted to say that I don't know if you've seen this, but in Japan, there's somebody who earns a lot of money with being somebody's companion. You can just order him. He will come to your house and sit on your sofa, and you pay him for his visit. And he doesn't even have to talk. You don't have to talk to him. You can just be there, so you're not alone. Because in Japan, a lot of lonely people, which is quite interesting. So it's just someone who just comes and joins you, whatever you're doing. And but for gambling purposes, if you can pick up in an early stage that somebody is experiencing something, then it's up to the operator to have their new strategy for that. And how that looks and feels, I don't know yet. It might be a restriction. It might be an interaction with a human being. It might be
okay, and the player, for example, as a player, you wouldn't know what's the real purpose of that, because it could be an exploitative relationship with an artificial intelligence. So you don't know if this artificial intelligence wants just to keep you playing, within the Goldilocks zone. So you spend more money during more
well,
time, rather than say, okay, have you
yeah.
realized that, you know, maybe it's not.
The thing is, Pedro, we already are in this situation in a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis. And
100%.
YouTube, that is a monster computer. YouTube is free. Do you really think it's free? You are the product.
Yeah.
Okay. So YouTube has a massive profile on your brain. Yeah, they know exactly it. The monster computer analyzes everything, how long you watch something, um, everything that's free. Facebook, um, they all do the same, especially when they're interlinked, and especially when microphones are on all the time. Alexa's listening to you, storing everything. The data is sold, so there's already you're already engaged constantly. The satellite knows where you are. Um, so I think we can't actually go around it. I think we should embrace it and not fear it. And I think for responsible gaming purposes, the ethics need to be, highest on the agenda, especially with AI. I think even I think a selection of candidates is done by AI. We don't even there's no human interaction. They select the top. We don't even realize it's already working for us or with us. But if you just it should be an option. It shouldn't be forced. Somebody should be able to pick it.
Okay,
That's interesting.
it's interesting because I was thinking, it- from your perspective, you think that a person should be able to opt out of, your algorithms. Like, okay, I don't want to be interacted by with a bot or with an artificial intelligence. That it's like you're playing with Kasparov chess without knowing, who is your, with Deep Blue without knowing who's your real rival. It's been like, okay, you don't know how good they are. Would it be okay to say, okay, I just want to speak with real people, to I don't want to interact with an artificial intelligence.
I don't know because you know what? I've been I've made thousands and thousands of calls,
Mhm.
ten thousands of thousands. Yeah. Um, of 10 calls that I used to make in my career,
Mhm.
there would be one who would be aggressive and like, why the hell are you calling me? Um, don't bother me with your crappy questions. Yeah. Um, One was always, I'm happy that you called me. Finally, I can speak to someone because I nobody knows what I'm doing and I cannot speak about it with you. So they felt comfortable in speaking with you. And the remaining of those calls, they were okay. Okay. They didn't have actually a problem, but they were like, okay, let's have this conversation and that's it.
Okay.
Because it's all about the psychology behind removing someone from out of anonymity. Okay. Especially I always use this with training as well. Because I was in my beginning of the career, I was security officer.
Mhm.
If you work as a security officer so let me just talk about shoplifters. Okay,
Mhm.
so 10% of the shoplifters are professional shoplifters. You won't see them, and they will steal in your shop. They are trained; it's their job. Okay. Then you have another 10% who are opportunity shoplifters. I think it's even a lower amount professionals, higher amount opportunity. But let's say 80-20. Um, no, sorry. It's 80% opportunity and 20 professional. Yeah? Let me just say this. Um, most people who steal in shops is they do that because they can walk in a shop, nobody speaks to them, nobody sees them, um, nobody looks at them, and when nobody looks at them, they just put it in their pocket. That's it. Just they didn't come there to steal. They're like, oh, this is nice. And there's nobody watching me. Plop, gone. This is what the most shoplifters do. But if you say if you tell someone good afternoon, good morning, when they come in, no thefts.
I think I get it. Sometimes it's a deterrent. To know to say, okay, we're monitoring how you gamble, so people say, okay, if I gamble too much, they're going to give me a call or they're going to interact or whatever. So maybe a deterrent if people know that the gambling is monitored. That's what you're trying to tell me, or did it
What you
jump?
actually try to do is to try to identify, give them, because some people don't know what they're doing in that sense. We say, hey, we identify this. We want them to think about it. So you have to communicate, however it is, on the right moment. And we see also that if you do that in a certain way, it has an effect on somebody's behavior. If you do it for, on a distance, or it depends, because you can be a white label operator. You can be it just depends on what kind of operator you are. So I think that game, to identify someone and to show them that you saw something, that that helps. It just, especially if you remind them of, hey, please be aware, make sure that you play only with money you can afford to lose. It's all about the tone that makes the music. And I think a lot of youngsters, and especially in these eras, and I think depending on the type of products that people create, also attract different type of customers of certain ages. They are not 40 years and older. They are 18 to 24.
Hmm.
They're going to be the largest group. That they would be attracted to having an interaction with um, with AI, for example, or some avatar, or I think it's because it's easier for them to just say, "Oh, it's not a person who would judge me. It's just."
Yeah, I actually read some research, and that was sold, with actually with military personnel, that they prefer to have like uh, artificial intelligence therapies, because they feel that they won't be judged, or that they won't, that this,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow,
Well,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's I get it. Sometimes people, they can say, okay, there's not a person there. I think it may vary depending on the person. Because I suppose that you know tech savvy people say, I don't want to say anything that could go to an algorithm that I don't know if the data is going to be hacked someday, or who knows. So suppose that everything has pros and cons.
you
So
know. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go.
You know what makes me always happy, when a standard automated email is triggered at a certain behavior to a customer, and the customer replies back, "No, no, everything's fine. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. I'm just having fun. You don't have to worry." You can see that, it does have an effect on people, even if you just communicate a little bit. It's so fun to get something back, because that information is like gold to us.
Mm.
I mean, we will never always believe a customer on his blue eyes, and it's better to speak somebody in person. But that somebody took the time to just answer quite a standard email,
Mm.
she doesn't have to answer to, which, like, 95% of the people don't do that, or even smaller, 98, and these persons do, and that you send them a reply back. It's at the end of the day, it's about communication, data, and analytics, and specialized data. Um, the more data we have, the better it is. The better we can tailor our GSG, you know. And I think we are moving towards something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Wanted or not, is the way it's going. So I'm mindful of the time. I wanted to ask you one last question. So if you were the regulator,
Yeah.
what sort of meaningful measure do you think that you will implement, for a particular jurisdiction, that you think it could be helpful for players and people that they're helping in responsible gambling?
It actually makes sense because I would prefer. Um, I like how the MGA actually has their regulations. I also like how the Dutch do their reporting. I think the Dutch go a bit overboard at the moment, but I do think how they set up the reporting. So a combination of the two would be, for me, a quite. You have a little bit of freedom as operator, but the responsibility on reporting, which is huge.
Mm.
So the sharper the reporting is, the better the operator can, the regulator can understand what the company is actually doing from RG perspective. I think it's not strange that there are so many organizations operated registered in Malta or work under the MGA. It's because it's a I think it's a user friendly license, but it should have a sort of a reporting. I think um, I think as I said, the regulations should be created by responsible gaming people at operators. Believe me, they know exactly what to do. If it was up to me, I would always use affordability as key in because you don't have to be a psychologist or a behavioral therapist to understand everything about problematic gambling. I think it's not the job of the operator.
Mm.
I think the operator just needs to know, okay, are they spending more than they can afford? It's not only about money, but it's time-wise, money-wise, how is somebody's doing, is somebody... so I think for example, what I love about Sweden is that you can just see somebody's income at the tax authority.
That's very open. I think
It's super
that
open.
that would be
Yeah, but
not that popular in the UK that everybody
no,
can.
no. But at least um, I think some of the markets are some of the regulated markets are doing a bad job. And I think the regulations are pushing people to the black market, not really the operators. They are the big black market pushers because you want to have a coverage of your regulations.
I think it's all about being balanced. I think sometimes even if they have good intentions, they can have negative consequences. As you say, you become too restrictive, then people go to the to
For sure.
unregulated places. So it's difficult because I know that sometimes there's regulators that take measures that I know very well that they mean well, but they have a bit of the opposite effect.
Yeah, I judge the regulations on their reporting requirements, and their reporting requirements tell me how important regulation and protection of people are at a certain level, more important than politics.
So, Jeremy, thank you very much for your time today, and a pleasure to speak with you as always. Thank you, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Before you hang up, because I'm going to stop the recording now, but